I will talk about full-scale biorefinery. We are one, and I want to put this in a perspective. I want to see and show the challenges and also what I think is the opportunities as well as what I think we need to do. But I want to start with, I read in one of the notes in Facebook, a story about a company who was eating excessively dinner in a restaurant. They were taking in wine, food, eating different kinds of very fashionable food, and at the table besides another couple was sitting, and they were eating very scarcely, so they eat a very simple dinner. The big company, when they left, the company sitting beside said, "How can you eat so much and take so much food, and you don't even eat everything?" And they responded, "Well, what does that concern you? We can afford it. So what's the problem?" And then they responded, "Just because you can afford, does that give you the right to consume the resources which are scarce? We're already now over-consuming. You can afford, but does that give you really the right to consume what we know is really too much?" And I think we talk about sustainability and we talk about the climate change. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm very concerned about the consumption that we're doing. We're actually consuming too much, and we know it. These are some pictures and some slides I found actually in the overconsumption use of world's natural resources from 2009. It shows how we extract. The pictures on top shows how we extract different kinds of natural resources. It's oil, fossil oil, it's metal, it's minerals, and it's biomass. It shows the progress from 1980 and until 2005. And it also shows a forecast from 2005 and out to 2030. So from 1980 until 2030, we will double the amount of resources we are extracting. And as mentioned before, also as Anders mentioned, we're also actually trading resources. The lower slide shows how much of the manufactured products are actually traded globally. So we are shifting the resources from one location to another, and we are over-consuming. This shows what we are doing in fish. Actually, the blue is what is overfished, the yellow is fully fished, and the red is what is underfished. So we're using the resources much more. And actually what we know also now is that the relation between plastics and fish in the ocean is 1-to-1, close to. It's getting there. So isn't it really something that's scary? To me it is. And also other kinds, the global footprint shows, and we know that every year. We talk about when is the day that we have consumed sustainably in the year, and it's in the order of magnitude in August. After August, we're not consuming what's sustainable, we're consuming what is already been produced by the globe. And different kinds of measures. It says that if we continue, we will need more than one globe. Actually, the lower one shows that if we, the entire world, would consume as much resources as we do in Europe, we would need 4 globes. I mean, to me, this is really a problem. And what does... Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't really understand it. Maybe I'm having nightmares about this. But we here in the Western world, we don't really see this because we can afford it. We can afford to consume. But even though we can afford it, can we really do that without caring? We who can afford it, don't we have to care about how we consume resources? And that's why I say we have to do something about it. Definitely, and I think we can do something about it. This is another way of showing the red ones are the areas where they consume more than what's sustainable. The green ones are areas where we actually have a capacity over what is the consumption in that area. And we can see Sweden, Finland, Norway, Russia, we have resources which could be used. The question is how we use them. And in Europe in particular, this is just showing the different resources, iron, copper, coal, and oil. Europe has 2% of the oil, so it's quite obvious. If we are over-consuming, it's also obvious that oil is something that we in Europe really need to care about. We can't continue to consume oil. The good thing is, and that's been said before, whatever can be made of oil can also be made of wood. And that's not strange. I mean, what does oil come from? It has been wood, or at least organic resources at some time. So of course we can produce everything that can be made of oil, we can produce from wood. But coming back to if we have an overconsumption now, I think it's fair to say and fair to think about, if we want to create a sustainable society, it's not only a question of which products we produce. We have to consider if there's insufficient resources, what are we going to utilize them for? And to me, I think it's the most important to look on what are the basic human requirements. We need somewhere to live. Well, wood is an excellent resource for use for living quarters. We need food, and we need textiles. That would be the main products. If we don't have sufficient resources, that's where we should put the resources in order to produce sustainably. And what we do today, I say that Domsjöfabriker is, we have a history since 1903, but we have over the years actually developed into a biorefinery, and already today we produce a lot of different products which replaces oil. This is our process. I think you've been in the mill and seen that. But what we do, we consume around 1.4 million cubic meter. I set up the capacity of 230,000 tons, which is the capacity we have today. We don't really produce that much this year, but we will get up into that capacity and then we'll go even further. But what we're doing now with 1.4 million tons of wood, we produce ethanol, we produce lignin, or rather lignosulfonate, which is a product that's been used in the production of concrete. It's not the same as kraft lignin, and that's why when you produce kraft lignin, you really need more processes in order to produce valuable products, besides energy. And then we produce cellulose. The major part of that goes to producing dissolving grade cellulose for textiles. But besides that, we produce sufficient energy for our processes. I mean, the bark, the bioresin, the biogas, what is coming out of our product, what's coming from the wood, actually supports our process. So we don't need to add additional resources. We don't need any coal or oil in the production. So this is more or less the background to what is being done now. And the question is how to bring that forward. But I'll come back to that. One of the main products is textiles. And starting from wood, we produce the cellulose, dissolving grade cellulose, free from hemicellulose and lignin. It's made into fibers in the viscose process. Then it's made into yarn and fabric. And in the end, it's fashion, jeans or shirts or whatever. So this is the value chain in which we are participating. You forest owners are in the plantations, we are in the cellulose, and then we have my owner, the Ditobila Group, is producing the fiber. Then we have several different small companies that produces the yarn and the textiles, because that's very, very human intensive. The processes like making cellulose and viscose are less human intensive or labor intensive. This was mentioned before, and what's happened actually, and this is why textiles is so important for us. From 1960 to 2015, there has been a growth in population, and there's also been a growth in consumption of textiles. This is strongly related to the welfare. The higher paid we are, the more textiles we consume. In 2050, we will be 9 billion people, and we would then consume 36 kilograms of textiles per person. And if we will translate, 2015 we consumed 95 million tons. If you would extrapolate that into 36 kilos, it's more than 200 million tons. It's a huge demand. Of course, driven by the increasing welfare. As mentioned before, the yellow part of this is actually some 65% of the total consumption of textiles is polyester. And that's actually developed since the 1970s. From 50s, 60s, almost everything was made out of cotton. Well, you have cotton, silk, and other wool and other very small amounts of products. But from the 70s, the growth in textile consumption has mainly been in polyester, and this is continuing. But this also shows a major opportunity for us if we want to go sustainable. Polyester is one of the problems we have with the oceans, that there's too much plastics in the oceans. So we should, if we want to go more sustainable, replace polyester with products produced from wood. And this is what I think is a great opportunity for us. And this is one of the points in talking about major large-scale biorefineries also. So if we go now to combine, and that's what we've been doing, we have been talking a lot about the innovations that comes through the research organizations like Processum and others. I think that Processum has, over the years, since they started, done a lot of very good job and come up with several different products based on how to relate to and replace oil. So if we want to do something more, what can we do? Because the problem we always come into is what's been mentioned here. You come to demo scale, you come pilot scale and demo scale, but you don't really scale up to come to these large-scale equipment, so large-scale mills. So what we have done now is that let's try to do something. So we, together with 12 other parties and with the strong support of Gunnar, we have decided to go through a pre-study to investigate whether if we could, with the competition we have today, the knowledge, the innovations, if we could produce a large-scale biorefinery which could produce products that can replace fossil-based products, and also do that in a profitable way, because we need to compete with oil if we go out into the market. So that's why you need scale. And I think the idea is, how do we make something sustainable? Can we, I mean, we get energy from the sun, we know that, and that makes the forests grow. Can we make a cycle where we produce products, and in the end, when we regenerate the energy in the products when they've reached their lifetime, can we generate an excess of energy? Because then this can not only support products that are sustainable in a circle, but also support energy requirements which is required from other processes that does not have the opportunity that we have with a sustainable raw material. And I think it's possible. And what we've done is that, look, we have to start somewhere. So we said, if we scale up and go to what we think is some kind of order of magnitude which is required, we said we could go up to 1 million tons of cellulose, which is a very large pulp mill. But it's not the largest pulp mill. If we talk about pulp mills, the largest ones are now up to 2 million tons, so it's twice that size. However, they are in Southeast Asia, where there's a lot of forest and there's a fast growth also. But this would be probably the size that would be required. And if we then start by making the cellulose, there will be other products coming out, because the process that we have knows, and that we know that we can add on different kind of added process stages. So we can not only produce cellulose, we can at the same time produce several different other products. And we've set up that what would be interesting is, of course, is it possible to produce proteins for food, like single-cell protein? We know today that what is done when you do fish feed is you mix soy protein and fish meal. So you actually take fish out of the ocean, grind them down to produce fish feed, mix that with soy feed. And as I've shown, there's not sufficient resources, but that's not the way it should be done. So if we can utilize the forest and the process and actually at the same time produce a raw material for food, that would be an excellent solution. Lignosulfonate, that we already do today, and it's today being used as a dispergent mainly in the concrete business. But this is a chemical that could possibly be used for many other applications than what it's used today. It needs some development, but there is a market already today. We know that we, from the process, can actually take out the hemicellulose in a more polymeric form, and that could be used to replace other kinds of polymeric films, for instance, in packaging. If we combine, as you've said, the knowledge that's been presented today to some extent, making gasification, we can use gasifiers, and that makes it possible to produce different kinds of chemicals. We can produce methanol, ethanol, and whatever you want to do out of it. You can also stay with the syngas. We can make fibers that we are already today doing with another company to make construction material for insulation. We can take some tannines out of the bark and use that as natural pesticides. And if at the same time can combine these all the different products, we're starting to interact and to make combination of producing the raw material for textiles, but also produce the fibers at the same site. So this would be, are you standing up already? I'm not halfway. You'll be here until tomorrow. I don't give a. But then to do this, to combine this, to make this at site, and then if we would do this, and at the same time we could produce sufficient biofuel to provide all the energy required for all the transportations in this chain. Don't we start with producing a very stable, sustainable value chain? I tried to make something out of it, don't look on the calculations, but I made some rough estimate, very rough estimate, saying that if we take the product from the wood, it would require some energy, it will require some energy in the production, and so on and so on. Net, if we take it all back, there will be an excess of energy. And this is what I hope that we will come out and show. So where are we now? I think I would say that large-scale biorefineries, they're definitely a part of the bioeconomy. And what we can do with the pre-study is to show if this really has the potential that we think it has. But there still will be questions that has to be answered. Can we really produce the products in a way that is competitive with oil-based products? That's an answer. I think we will get the answer that it is, and it will be. And that's why it's so important with scale. Without scale, this is impossible. Is there going to be sufficient forest available? That question has been raised earlier. Can we utilize the forest growth into doing this? And the third question is, of course, when you scale up, is there sufficient support? You're getting closer and closer. This is going to get cozy. Thank you. I go on. So what I'll end with, I think that this is a part of the future. And I think this is a great opportunity, and I think it's going to be possible to make it come through. But you can turn it around. If we have insufficient resources, can we really afford not to do something like this? And that was actually my last slide. Thank you for listening.
Very good. Thank you. So it's quite a lot of products coming out from this kind of process. And which products do you think are the most promising from Domsjö perspective?
Well, I wouldn't say it only from a Domsjö perspective, because this is not only Domsjö. I think the requirements from textiles, it's of course a huge product, and there we have companies like IKEA and H&M, we have Kappahl, Lindex, and so on and so on. There's a lot of Swedish-based companies which could really support this, and if they are supportive and wants this to come through, they will have to be a part of it, because you can't really drive this without having a demand in the inside. So I think the potential is there. The textiles is definitely something that's a part of it, but to me the challenging would be to produce the proteins, because that is so right from a moral perspective. And even though it today doesn't show to have that financial potential, I think it in the long run there has to be. And it's so good if we can combine that. But a crucial thing here is, once again, back to the raw material, what we need to do is to have a very high yield. So we need to produce many products, because that gives the basis of being very profitable, and also a basis for being able to pay the price that the forest owners want to have. In particular, Göran, now he's not here. But if that doesn't work, I'm going to go to him and ask for a lease of his land.
Yeah, great. So what do you think I should plant for kind of wood?
Well, what we see, the market today shows a premium for long fibers. So we get a premium price, and I think that this is where we have the opportunity in our part of the world. We can't compete with the short fibers, because they are growing so much faster.
And I don't know what you're talking about. So is that pine or spruce?
Yes.
I don't. Okay.
Please do.
Any of it then?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. You also have
I've never seen that. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.